In the automotive world, there are three things: good design, design mistakes, and then there's something I like to call the Pontiac Aztec. The Pontiac Aztec, at least in concept, wasn't supposed to be a joke. It was pitched as a lifestyle vehicle, part SUV, part minivan, part camping gear catalog fever dream. The kind of car a rugged suburban dad buys after reading Outside magazine on a plane one time. But under that glorious body, which we will get to later, the Aztec shared much of its bones with the much famed Montana minivan. Same 185 horsepower V6, same front-wheel drive auto platform, although if you were feeling spicy, you could get an all-wheel drive system, also out of the Montana minivan, for an extra cost, and it doesn't include lockers for off-road, because surprisingly, this wasn't an off-road vehicle. Imagine taking your mom's grocery getter, giving it a snorkel, and saying it was a rally car. It makes no sense. And what made ponying up the cash to buy one even more fun was the fact that you really couldn't take it off-road, you couldn't haul much, really, the towing capacity was quite shit, and you couldn't attract any women. But you could unzip the tent from the rear and pretend you were the kind of person who slept under the stars, alone that is. All of this is without mentioning the exterior. It's probably the ugliest car you'll ever see. It looks like what a 5-year-old would design for you if you told them to design you an off-roader, and well, quite frankly, I've seen better from the toddlers. GM, eventually, in their infinite wisdom, realized that the kids these days weren't exactly into the plastic trimming of their earlier models, so their solution was shoddily painting over it. It's a shot in the dark, and it didn't work. This wasn't an SUV, this was a crisis vehicle. Pontiac tried to build a Jeep out of a grocery getter, and America really did call its bluff. And after 4 long and agonizing production years, Pontiac finally put this inept machine where it belongs, the dumpster. And even at the end of its realistic lifespan, the only reason why it achieved any sort of popularity is because of a popular TV chef, known for cooking something, well, other than food.
Oh no, I've crashed it.
The Reliant Robin was a vehicle that never really figured out what it wanted to be. Was it a car? A trike? Maybe a sad little econobox with a driver to match? Or maybe just an elaborate prank on the British public? Now, from a distance, it looked like a real car. Kind of. It had doors, windows, seats, even an engine, but get a little bit closer and you would notice something off. It only had 3 wheels. 1 at the front, 2 at the back. Like the engineers gave up halfway through designing it. The Robin was Britain's answer to the question, what happened if a car was allergic to turning? Seriously, putting the engine over a single front wheel is like balancing a bowling ball on a chopstick. It tips over faster than a pensioner on rollerblades. You couldn't go around a corner without saying a prayer, making peace with your family, and updating your will. There's even a rumor that Reliant included a Bible in the glove box for emergency use at roundabouts. Now, technically, it wasn't even a car. Like any trustworthy and reliable company, Reliant registered the Robin as a tricycle. Why? Because in the UK, at least at the time, trikes dodged certain taxes and licensing requirements. Quite genius, right? But calling the Robin a tricycle is like calling a shopping cart a touring car just because you've duct taped the spoiler to the back. It's nonsense. Dangerous nonsense. Really, it was a marvel of engineering if your engineers were drunk, blindfolded, and wearing oven mitts. Every curve of the road was like a coin flip between reaching your destination and ending up on Instagram Reels. The Reliant Robin was so good, in fact, that it was the last car the company ever produced in 2002 before quietly shutting its doors and vanishing. Ah yes, the Fiat Multiplier. Where do I start with this thing? Is it a concept car? A minibus? A night of bad decisions between a Fiat Panda and the Aztec? It was originally designed to be a clever and compact MPV. Instead, it looked like somebody glued a fish tank from the dentist's office on top of an engine and 4 wheels, and then put some ugly seats inside of it. Fiat was creative, to say the least, with the exterior design. Think of taking an Oscar Mayer weenie car and toning it back a little bit. There's really no other way to describe it. The only good thing about the exterior was that it was, well, instantly recognizable. Now, later on, Fiat did decide that the Multipla would finally look normal-ish, but by then it was far too late for the poor vehicle. Fiat also knew that it sucked, and so they made the windows giant and untinted so that people on the sidewalk could shame you for buying a Multipla. But the real horror was inside. Now, I would like to preface everything by saying that the car was very spacious for its size. Able to fit 2 rows of 3 or 2 rows of 2 when you put the middle seats down for the VIP experience. This spaciousness really makes it the perfect old person's car as proven by Top Gear. Now, on to the fun stuff. The dashboard looked like an alien spaceship. Buttons everywhere. Wanted to turn up the stereo? Sorry, bud, you started blasting your AC. Got a ticket because you were speeding? Well, it's probably because you were looking at your stereo instead of your speedo. Nothing made sense. Climate controls were also buried next to the gear lever, which stuck out of the center console like a joystick on a blender. Imagine shredding your gearbox because you wanted to change your climate settings. Fiat claimed this setup was ergonomic. Well, it was ergonomic in the way that juggling chainsaws is a good hobby. The Fiat Multipla, not including its 600 multiple cousins, ended up lasting a full 12 years. Shocking for a car that looked the way it did. You're in the 1980s, broke or just looking for a deal, and you need a car. What do? You take your, well, scooter I guess, and ride over to the nearest Yugo dealership. You enter the front door and you talk to the one sad guy there, and he points you to your brand new Yugo GV, the only car in the world with great value in its name. Now, the Yugo GV was supposed to be a cheap and cheerful car for the people. What we got instead was a rattling death box on 4 wobbly, unbalanced wheels. Powered by a 1.1-liter 4-cylinder Fiat engine, yes, the same Fiat that brought you the Multipla, the GV squeezed out a whopping 55 whole horsepower in lucky situations, similar to that of today's most sporty lawn tractors, but with far worse reliability. Now, you'd think, for being so underpowered, it would at least be dependable, maybe like the Iron Duke that also happened to grace American soil. You, my friend, must be out of the loop. The engine was so poorly put together that timing belt failures were practically a rite of passage, often before 40,000 miles. And when that belt broke, which it would, it was an interference engine, which meant the pistons and valves would have a chaotic metal-bending get-together and destroy themselves immediately. Oil leaks, overheating, stalling, misfires, the Yugo's engine bay was like a disaster simulation in real time. In fact, calling it unreliable was generous. This car was a public health hazard, and AAA probably owes half its budget to the Yugo years. It didn't handle, it didn't stop, it didn't start sometimes, but it did teach a generation of Americans an important lesson. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's a deal.